The following is a presentation of Jacob Sports.
And welcome in everyone to week one of the Coaches Show with Billy Crocker, head coach of Eastern University, back for another season here across the Jacob Sports Network. And Coach, great to kick off our season-long edition of the Coaches Show, along with my partner Warren Schmidt. A welcome into another season. I know that you have been waiting to get to this point, and what a start it was. But first, welcome in, my friend. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Joe. Warren, appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, great to have you here. And as Warren said in the pre-show, a lot to talk about. Let me just get an opening thought from you, Coach, and then I know Warren wants to cover some of the game specifics as we watched them unfold in the game from the press box. Opening game, AMCATS on the schedule. They come in. You're as tense and tight as you normally are before that game starts. So it must have felt good to finally get started after all the work that has been done from the end of last season to the start of this season.
Yeah, I think one thing we wanted to do was sort of carry some of that momentum from how we finished last season into this one, and talked about trying to get off to a good start. You know, in our previous two varsity seasons, we've never won an opener. So this was our first, chance to, I think, really do that. And it was something that we talked a lot about with our guys, was getting off to a great start. And obviously we were able to do that. I thought we played really efficiently in all three phases of the game, which we wanted to do. And, a fairly clean game outside of, some penalties that kind of hurt us at times. But other than that, we were pleased with what we came out with the opening game.
Yeah, Coach, I'll tell you, it was great to be up in the box with Bernie and Joe and everybody up there to start the season. Beautiful weather to start the game. We had that weather delay, but always a little wrinkle for you guys, right? But you're right about that momentum. I mean, last year, let's even mention it real quick. We didn't have the Coaches Show after the season. You go up to FDU 4-5, and you're down big. You could have just said, "Hey, let's just look towards next year," and your team just really laced them up and came back and beat a very, very good FDU team up there. And it showed the momentum of the next day, that Monday. You told me how many guys were in that weight room. And I'll tell you, it showed when Joe and I were out at training camp and seeing your guys on how they've progressed. And then before the game, talking to all your guys, they're like, "Hey, we just can't wait to play." And then talking to you, "I need another week. I need another week with this team," right? You're never ready, right? But your players sure were ready. And I just love how you guys came out. And really the first game you guys were ever favored in, technically. Yeah. I mean, it's a team coming down from Worcester, Mass, a very similar roster with amount of players from all different parts of the country. So it's kind of really neat. It'll be fun to go up there next year. But let's talk about you guys coming out and just putting on 22 defensive touchdown, and then your offense in all phases doing really well. And I'm going to say 4 phases of the game you guys won. Special teams, always important, right? John Nolik had a good game. Westfield had a really good game. Your long snapper snapped really well. But you had offense, defensive touchdown, special teams, and also coaching. But when you guys get into that locker room afterwards, what were you saying to the guys? I mean, how excited were they just to get that off their chest?
I think it was a little bit of a relief. I think going into a game like that, even from the previous two, there were a lot of unknowns with our opponent, right? Like they are a program that has had some success, a few years ago with going to the playoffs and things like that. And I think they're trying to build it back up, from that standpoint. So you just didn't know, they had some transfers on their team. The quarterback was an unknown and, was previous a Division I commit, so a little bit nervous on that one, so just a lot of unknowns. And I think our guys handled it extremely well, as did our coaches. And, I think, especially at halftime and then during that weather delay right after halftime, the kids were starting to feel it. You know what I mean? They knew that game was starting to really tilt in our favor from that standpoint. You know what I mean? But, the message to them was, we got to go out and finish the job, and I said, we've been on the other side of this now, right? Like at that FDU game, we went down, we were down at halftime big. And I said, hey, same thing. We've been on the other side. They're going to come out and fight. Now it's our job to, sort of put the nail in the coffin here, which we did in the third quarter.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you see some players grow up in front of you, and obviously Brett Knapp. I mean, he had a 65-yard run called back on him. He would have had close to 200 yards rushing. Jeremiah Brilliant, MAC player of the week for 3 touchdowns. But one player, and we'll talk about some of your defensive guys, but one player that I really thought played really well is one of your captains, Justin Nicolopoulos, but also Eddie Swinton, going up and getting that ball at a big juncture of the game. That was a big play.
Yeah.
If you guys don't convert that, I was really surprised they didn't throw the flag on that to challenge that. I don't think there was enough to overturn it. But I thought I love seeing Eddie go up and get the ball. Brett putting it in a good spot. But the development of some of your guys and your offensive line played really well. But, Bernie and I were talking about during the game, these were some of those mistakes that they were doing were what you were doing last year.
Yeah.
Now you guys aren't doing that. How did you flip that switch, or is that just the players buying in?
I think it's a combination of, the guys are bought in a little bit, and I also think it's experience, right? Like, for 2 years we battled, significant inexperience, right? Because they were all young and new and, kind of thrown into the fire. And now you got some guys who have been through those battles, and that experience is a great teacher, as you know. So I think you're starting to see the maturity of those guys seeing things before and saying, okay, hey, we've been through it before. We know what to do now. But again, I think they have an expectation, as do I, and they expect to win. I don't really think it matters who's on our schedule, to be honest with you. I think our approach is those kids think they can win, and I think that's super important.
Well, the big part of that is, just that coming into the season, and I know you don't want to talk about this, you didn't even put it on social media, but you guys are ranked 3rd in the preseason poll for the MAC. You had one first place vote. That means another team voted you guys to win the MAC conference. And I just love to see the development. Let's go to the defensive side, though. You just had your 2 corners played really well. TJ Olsen and Jamari James. I thought they played really well. And then Drew Beckford. What I love to see in players is he got nicked up. I think he had a stinger, hurt his shoulder. He comes back in and has a big pick, right? That's what you want to see. You want to see guys, how they battle. Don't give up. Salif Nakima on that defensive line coming off that edge. Just really, really great to see that defense gel. And then obviously Gashawn Moody with all his tackles. But you had a lot of guys with defensive tackles rotating guys in. Is that going to be a thing in the future?
Yeah, I think we have more than 11 who can play and deserve to play, to be quite honest with you. You look at a kid like, Kyrie Taylor, only a sophomore. He has improved tremendously. And, I know we got 2 pretty good ones with TJ and Jamari, but Kyrie deserves to play, and play a lot. He'd probably be starting at most places, to be quite honest with you, and guys like Eric Wilson and Sam Sell and, different linebackers. Like, I think we have some depth, which is nice, and they deserve to play. It's not going to be 11 because I do believe at some point you're going to need those guys. And when you do need them, it can't be for the first time, so I think you got to try to get guys, reps throughout the season early, which obviously we were able to do. But even in a close game, I think you got to, pick your spots to get guys in. So when you do need them on a larger scale, they're ready to go, and I think that's what those gun. And I thought what was great about the defense was, we were trying to looking at everything, kind of seeing, well, who's our player of the game? And you're not really, nobody stuck out, if that makes sense. Like, it was just guys doing their jobs, right? Like, I know Drew had the pick 6, but, the kid kind of threw the ball right to him, and I probably could have ran that one in, but, and you look at our corners, like, they didn't have much stats, but they were all over those kids. And it was a really good team effort in terms of guys just playing within the scheme and doing their job. And I think that's the most impressive and important part of what it was defensively.
Coach, let me get you to comment on and look at it, I guess, from the defensive side of their football. But their freshman quarterback, Nikolai Boyce, from up in the box, was a gunslinger.
Oh yeah.
Kid stood in there. The kid could throw the football, and he never stopped fighting. He's going to be a good quarterback. His college career is going to be a good one. Talk about what you saw from his perspective. I don't know whether or not, or I don't know how he's going to match up against other quarterbacks that you're going to face going forward. But I thought he certainly put together, a good challenge for your defense. Forget the score.
No,
Forget the score.
Yeah.
I'm talking about him as a player.
Yeah, no. He had me completely nervous going into the game because kind of find out he was a starter, kind of going through his, background a little bit, and you watch his high school film, you're like, whoa, wait a second, from down in Florida, kind of see where he was supposed to be going, which is University of New Hampshire, on scholarship, I believe. And I called one of my friends up there, and he was like, oh yeah, we love the kid. Like, he was our guy. And there was an injury, they had to kind of, cut ties there a little bit because there was a lot of unknowns with it. But the kid got, fully cleared and healthy, and ended up there in late spring, I believe. So I was going into it really nervous, from that standpoint, because I think the kid is super talented. He's just young, right? Young and inexperienced. And, I think they struggle a little bit up front, which obviously affects the quarterback, especially a young one, but no, that kid, if he stays at this level, I think will be a super player.
It's the Coachy Show with head coach Billy Crocker here across the Jacob Sports Network. We'll now officially catalog Game 1 as a victory as we look ahead now and transition into Game 2. Alvernia coming up. Guys, sit tight. We're going to pause for about 45 seconds. We'll pick up our conversation with head coach Billy Crocker across the Jacob Sports Network. Back in a moment. The One Big Beautiful Bill was recently enacted by Congress. Many provisions such as no tax on tips and no tax on overtime can help reduce tax liability for many taxpayers. Are you unsure how the provisions of the bill will impact your taxes? Want to avoid any unforeseen surprises when filing your 2025 tax returns? Then you need to contact the tax professionals at Mankowski Associates CPA LLC. They will review your returns and provide guidance on how the changes will impact your return. They can be reached at 215-682-7366. And be sure to mention Eastern University for special discounts. That's 215-682-7366. And Game 2 of the 2025 season will be right back here across the Jacob Sports Network on Saturday, 12 p.m. We start the broadcast, 12:05 kick. It's another home game for Eastern before they go on the road. This time, though, Coach, it's Alvernia now coming in. So I don't know whether saying the mindset changes, because it is truly a one game at a time approach, but there's significance to getting out and winning your opening game in the conference for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, because we're a conference that plays, almost exclusively conference games outside of the one we just did, every game in this league is important. So, we want to get off on the right foot, obviously. I think there's a lot of parity in the MAC this year. In terms of, who could kind of come out on the top, and I think a lot of the teams are very similar, and Alvernia being one. Based on what I've seen, they are very much improved from they were a year ago. They lost a couple guys, including their quarterback and that outstanding receiver that they did have. But I think what Coach does a great job of, he's, as all coaches should do, try to play to your strengths, right, and play to your personnel. And he's got two young quarterbacks that they're playing who, they're young, but they're very athletic. So they're running the quarterback a lot, which again plays to their strength. And, that score against Ursinus I don't think was very indicative of kind of who they are or really what the game was. Okay. It was a couple, weird plays that happened early that allowed Ursinus to kind of get up on them. But this is a much improved football team. They got skills, certainly. And I think you're going to see two sort of very similar teams go against each other.
Coach, when you're looking at the film, I know you talked about a couple players, but do you, and you probably would never say this to your team, but this is kind of the definition of a trap game This is a team that you've had success from. You never lost to these guys. 1-0 going into a big weekend at Eastern with the Hall of Fame inductees being inducted or being introduced at halftime. Probably going to be another big crowd. Hopefully, it's going to be another beautiful day. Anything scares you? Like, if you guys take care of business, should this be a W for Eastern, or is that just locker room talk and you're going to keep the motivation going? Because I like what Krause was saying. Each week is 1-0, and I think that's what you guys have.
Yeah, I think realistically, we have beaten them twice, but both games were super close. We went up there last year. Offense played extremely poor. That was a ball game. I think it was 9-7 in the fourth quarter at one point until we got the scoop and score. So our defense played well, but our offense did not really show up at all. And it was a close game. Like, it could have literally gone either way, as could as the first year. So, I think, our kids have to understand there's no one in this conference that we can, look past or take lightly, you know what I mean? And I've talked about that with those guys, and, we're not necessarily who we think we are. You know what I mean? Nothing is owed to us. We're not nearly good enough to show up, and our kids know that. And that's something I stress with those guys every day. I say, we need to go out and earn a win, and we need to practice to earn a win. And that's got to be the approach week in, week out, and kind of no matter who we're playing.
Are you changing the game plan at all for this week? Do you guys have any wrinkles on offense that you want to share? Or, I really love the defense last week. You guys were kind of playing a base defense, but then all of a sudden would bring pressure at certain times. And I think that's because your corners were allowing you to do that, because it was almost like their press coverage. They were just really taking the pass away from that quarterback who was pretty good last week. Is that going to be the similar MO that you guys are going to do again this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be wrinkles. You got to kind of try to take away what you think another team does well. You know what I mean, in all aspects, right? But I think one thing we try to do, and something I believe in just in coaching in general, is it's more about your kids and your team than somebody else. And, it's more important that we know what we're doing and we can go out and execute, the way we're capable of executing. So, we just want to get out there, and again, regardless of who we're playing, we want our kids to get out there and line up and play fast and be confident and not think about what we're doing. You know what I mean? So, I don't think from an identity standpoint, you got to kind of believe in who you are. You got to change things when you need to change them, but and you got to alter things based on your opponent a little bit. But I think at the core of it, hey, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do, and we're going to go out and execute.
I know, Coach, when in getting preparation for that opening game, I got the 2 deep, and I'm sitting down starting to prep for the 2 deep, and I'm going through the 2 deep, and I'm looking, and I'm like, this is the same team that Warren and I called a year ago, although it's not the same team.
Yep.
It's a very different squad.
Yep.
Talk about that going in.
Yeah, I think every year is different, right? And you guys have been around it long enough to know that, I think, and you've seen it. Just every year is different. Kids change. You know what I mean?
But they don't always change, Coach. Forward, they don't always change for the better. Your squad, to me, just my opinion, this is a more mature group of players. This is a more focused group of players, and I thought they were focused a year ago. This is a team that had this, I don't know, a little bit more swagger. At least that's the way I felt looking at it. As that game unfolded. So I don't know, just an observation from my part.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I think they have confidence because I think they feel more, to a sense, a little bit more comfortable. But that is also something I am all over them about all the time is, you can't be comfortable, said it yesterday too. I got after them pretty good. I said, don't, you think you're comfortable, you think you have a spot, you don't, so I'll change it in a heartbeat, so, we got to keep, sort of that sense of urgency in everything we do to continue to, And the approach to it is like, guys, you only have 10 guaranteed opportunities. 10, that's it. And as much work as you put in, as much practice as you put in, it is unlike any other sport, right? Like basketball, you're playing 2-3 times a week. Baseball, who knows? Like football is so much different. And why would you ever not approach it that way for the very few opportunities that you do get?
Coach, to Joe's point, I think we're seeing this team just grow up in front of our eyes. There's so many times in last week's game where there's times where last year a guy might have maybe done a little extracurricular stuff, just all these different things that your team's not doing. They're just growing up. And it's also your coaching staff. Nate Hinkle, I think, took off the training wheels on the offense. He's letting 5 throw the ball down the field. Obviously he's designing great runs for your running backs. So I think it's the coaches too of trusting these players, and that's a testament to you. But one thing that really stuck out last week to me was after the game, you paid such attention to everything, and even your lineup on how you guys shook these guys' hands in the right way, and then you guys ran in and celebrated. I just thought that was really classy because, that's always tough after a tough win to have the other team celebrating in the end zone, and then you're down here having your talk to get on the bus and drive 6 hours up to Worcester. So I just giving you a little shout out to those little things. I think go a long way with this program, and you can see how these players, to Joe's point, are growing up and you act like your coach, and if you have 61 guys that played acting like Coach Crocker, this team's going to be pretty successful. But really, hats off on how you're developing these young men, because we see it when we see these guys before and after the game and during the game. It's really cool to see.
I appreciate it. That's the most. The most thing that I'm most impressed with is how some of these kids who have been with us now for a few years have grown more off the field than anything else, just academically, socially, all of it. You know what I mean? And, when some of them first came in here, it was a little rough, and not sure in which direction they were going to go. And a lot of them really just matured and got on board and kind of saw the bigger picture of things. And that's probably the most impressive thing with them.
We'll use the end of our show here today on the Coach's Show with head coach Billy Crocker, the head coach of Eastern University football, to let the coach know, as I released the information during the broadcast on Saturday, Coach, our very, very first Jacob Sports College game day from the campus of Eastern University, scheduled and slotted for homecoming weekend, with all details to follow. Pat McAfee will not be there, but we may actually borrow and have somebody attempt to kick a field goal. We're working on all those.
There you go.
But we're trying to mature and grow with it, Coach.
That's awesome.
No, we need the mascot head. We need the mascot head on set.
Yeah, we'll get you that as long as you pick us, right? So
Good stuff, Coach. Thank you so much, man, for joining us every week here across the Jacob Sports Network. It's the Coach's Show with Billy Crocker. We'll get a candid conversation with Warren, Coach, and myself weekly here on the Jacob Sports Network. And don't forget, this Saturday, we'll be right back here at noontime, 12:05 kick for Game 2 of the 2025 season. Special thanks to Monkowski Associates CPA LLC and all of our viewers and listeners who have been part of the growth of Eastern football. Coach, you're doing an amazing job. I look forward to seeing you Saturday down at the stadium.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Good stuff. See you next time, everybody.
Thanks, Coach. 1-0.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let Jacob Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call Jacob Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.